Hey guys, what's going on here? Still bad version of Scott to follow up with one of the videos that he had made very recently as of this recording. It was talking about how Sadako has this very oppressive condemning build. Um, I will leave a link to his video if you want to check it out. He will explain the concept and frustrations of it way better than I can. I'm not a good Sadako player by any means. I just really like the franchise, and at the end of that video, he had said if anyone has some suggestions for how you could balance Sadako, like give some base kit buffs while simultaneously adjusting that whole like condemning playstyle, that would be a healthy thing for the game. So I figured why not? I'll play a few games of Sadako on stream. No add-ons, just pretty decent perks. I'd say probably some of the stronger ones that you can put. And I didn't play super sweaty either. I wasn't like hard tunneling, but if someone ran up to me, obviously I would easily get them on hook 2 or 3 times in a row. Um, but it wasn't like I was deliberately going out of my way to do so. Out of a sample of like another 7 or 8 games from my stream, 2 of them had a player who was AFK at the beginning, and those immediately turned into 4Ks. So I'm not gonna really talk about those. Um, Also, just another half of the games that I played were people that were just I imagine they were the people trying to have fun, like going for the flashlight plays, going for pallet saves. I had an entire lobby CJ tech me on a single pallet, and I straight up just downed them all back to back right there, and the game ended. Um, the other ones where I think it was a clear I was getting looped, they were getting gens done, and it was like as traditional as a DBD game goes. I got anywhere from 5 to 7 hooks and no kills. One of the games I got 1 kill, but that's because I kind of proxied them late game. I secure the 1 kill you could get at the end. So if it's not people trying to have fun, I'm not doing great with her. And admittedly, I'm not a good killer. Straight up, I'm not. And I will stand by that fact at the end of time. I don't think my skill as a killer is top tier. I don't think I'm bad, but in terms of like MMR, I realistically would put myself near the soft cap, maybe a little below it, honestly. Um, I feel like she's okay. Admittedly, maybe I'm undervaluing specific components of my argument, but I feel like she wasn't too bad in my experience. Like compared to other killers, I really didn't have a power. Her power in a normal playstyle is just mobility. And I was talking about it with my friend, and I realized that I feel like it's kind of like a lower value Demogorgon, because with demo you have to set up your own portals. They have the chance to be cleared out, but in chase and in loops you have the shred that, you know, like ranged lunge where he claws at you. With Sadako, the TVs are already in place. They're stationary. They can be turned off, but they can't necessarily be cleared. So in terms of setup, Sadako kinda has, in my opinion, like a little bit better, because it's done for you right away. But you also don't have that flexibility to be like, I'm gonna patrol these gens and like this exit gate with demo. Like you can just set that up and then start teleporting, going where you need to go. And you can have good map pressure with Demogorgon too. The difference is demo has the ability to put in work in chase. Like when he shreds, that shuts off a lot of looping potential out of tiles where survivors need to be a lot more careful with how they're looping a tile set. With Sadako, I'm a 115 speed M1 killer. I don't really have any anti-loop besides possibly catching them off guard. Which I guess kind of leads a little bit into my build. My build, I had strong perks. You could see it. This is the little clip that I took from stream. I had Call of Brine, Tinkerer, Devour Hope, and Corrupt Intervention. Call of Brine is I think a pretty good perk, but in a vacuum without the eruption like combination of gen kicking, I feel like it's not as strong. It's still good, but like more fair, I guess would be the way I describe it. Devour Hope never went off. I got to 3 stacks, and every time I got an M1 on someone, they were already injured, so the exposed part didn't matter. So I honestly, I think for all intents and purposes, I was without a 4th perk Devour Hope in my sample of like 8 games didn't have any value. Corrupt Intervention, it's a slowdown perk. I'm not gonna deny it. That's probably one that people got mad at that I was running. No one actually was upset in like post game chat or anything, but I do feel like that did help me with. It had a lethal pursuer effect for me. Like I knew where I needed to turn to right away to start looking. Like wherever all the white gens are is roughly where they spawn, so I'm gonna start running in that direction, and I have a little bit of time to get some pressure before that. You could see someone tried to CJ tech me right there. But like, yeah, Corrupt Intervention bought me a lot of time, and it gave me a couple of hook states before the traditional gens start progressing in normal stuff. Last one was Tinkerer, and I really liked Tinkerer. There was a good few times where there was a TV that spawned really close to a gen, and I don't know if, you know, I mean, I know there's like a sound cue for when Sadako goes through a TV, but I got a couple grabs and a good couple M1s on survivors because they were really close to a generator and TV, and I could just go straight from crawling out to the quick speed boost and just grab someone. Admittedly, I think very clearly, very admittedly, I don't think that it was too good in the sense that like it really did a lot, but I liked my build. All that being said, kind of just took away from the point of how I'd want to balance Sadako. I didn't look at any add-ons, so I'm going off of base kit. One of the problems that I experienced, I'm not good at tracking people, just straight up. I had a hard time following survivors. She's really short. Her camera height is really low, and I just couldn't I couldn't really figure out exactly how I was supposed to navigate that, but that's not really something you can change, you know? So I feel like in general, that's not something that I really would have said is something you could fix. But I feel like that is a factor for how good of a chase she has or doesn't have. But I feel like it was good. Usually, I think the really big issue is the fact that you just don't have any power in chase. Like straight up, I am a 115 speed M1 killer. And the only benefit I have is after hooking someone, there is less time between that down and when I can then go to try and find someone else for pressure, where I teleport across the map, check the TV. If no one got the little condemn ring or I didn't see the color glow, cool, remanifest or demanifest and then go to another TV and check, did I hit anyone nearby? Nope. And I just kept repeating that process until I knew I teleported by someone. And then at that point, I'm looking around trying to find, most likely by the generator. You know, there's some hints that figure out where they would be, but a lot of my playstyle was basically just trying to manifest and move around the map to get value from just having that high mobility. I think, honestly, it's hard to balance her base kit. I feel like in my experience, her base kit wasn't terrible. But I mean, I'm also saying a 115 speed M1 killer isn't terrible, but that's, I mean, obviously you want a power. So I understand that it's not good, but it's so weird, so difficult to fix because I feel like some of those add-ons actually help. Maybe the only thing would be like base kit, give a little bit longer duration of a speed boost outside of a TV. Because maybe that could just help with the surprise factor and getting an extra down or two. I don't think it needs to be anti-looping. We got plenty of those killers in the game, and admittedly, they're probably the stronger ones that aren't fun to play against. So I don't think every killer needs to have, you know, anti-looping pressure. But the fact that the best I could take advantage of her power was just to move around the map a little more. Like that 7 stacks of condemning, the closest I got to it was in that Midwich game. And that wasn't even really close. It's just because the map is tiny, and because it's in that square shape, everyone's nearby to get hit by the condemn. Unless I'm deliberately trying to go for that with some of those add-ons, I don't think that's ever really feasible. I don't think it's efficient to try and go for it. And I feel like it's a cool slowdown gimmick in the same way Pig's traps are like a slowdown gimmick. And Scott talks about this in his video too. I'm not going to take any credit for that. But you know, it's like it's not meant to kill you, but it can. But it really is just kind of to deter the survivors. But at least in my experience, I don't think I think one person in the 2 hours that I was doing took the VCR tape and put it in the TV, and they weren't even close to dying. They just did that. Which I think is kind of similar to like how, you know, like maybe dull totems or chests usually are people like that's just inefficient to do for the sake of trying to progress the game and get out. And I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it's not bad. Like the mobility with the TVs and stuff is cool. And the condemning thing is a really cool gimmick if you can make it work, but base kit, it's really hard to tweak some numbers and make it better. I feel like just maybe the little movement speed burst out of the TV to give you some more reason to bump out of those TVs and try and go for hits. And then you're just like this alternate Wraith where you demanifest, you come out of a TV and speed boost hit. Because even Wraith, like, you know, you hit, I've seen hit and run Wraiths where you hit them, you go invis, you get them to a tile set where you kind of pigeon them into a pallet area, and then you have to uncloak, and then you get the speed boost and swing wide and get them behind a pallet. So I don't know. I make this as a second message to Scott, like, what do you guys think is a cool way to balance Sadako's base kit? I could take a look at some add-ons more and really see if that's anything I'd be interested in looking at balancing, but I feel like base kit's a good place to start. Admittedly, I don't run add-ons on a lot of my killers, and I know that's something I should just objectively be doing. Like, I'm saving up a ton of them for no reason. So I think it is important to consider add-ons too. I think just the base kit's not an objectively fair way to look at it, but I think it does outline, in my experience, some of those core problems of like, you really don't have a power besides mobility. And while that's not a bad thing, mobility combined with lethality is what makes things scary. Nurse and Blight have high mobility and you can down right off of those. Whereas with like Wraith, sure, you get high mobility being invis, but then you still have to uncloak and then get around, and that takes time. You can play around that near pallets, and ultimately I think that kind of shows, in my experience at least, and kind of how I see it, like, yeah, just because you have high mobility doesn't necessarily make you a good killer. Those two killers don't really have any power in chase, and I feel like they're both a little bit weaker. I know my friends say Wraith is kind of frustrating to play against, and I agree. I think Wraith isn't fun because he kind of just camp a window or camp a pallet, and the moment he uncloaks, get on the other side of it and start running away to safety. Like that's how I've played against Wraith. So I feel like the base kit's all right. Maybe it's just because I'm not going to toot my own horn and say I'm a good killer, but I got some value out of being an M1 killer. But they weren't wins. Like, by no means were they wins. I just felt like I played decent. And I think that has enough merit to be like, yeah, I think there should be some change to make her decent, but by no means do I think a base kit killer should be able to like 3K or 4K every game. That's also not fair. If like I said, if the survivors were kind of griefing, I didn't really have an issue. They weren't really being toxic or anything. Like, I got 3Ks, 4Ks like that. But if we were trying to play a normal game, like 1 kill. I don't think I even got a 2K with like the traditional game. And traditional meaning, you know, no one's trying to do cheeky flashlight stuff. So I'll maybe take a look at the add-ons and stuff. That might be in a future video, and I can look over it more. Non-condemned stuff, just kind of like the browns and the yellows, and be like, okay, maybe these help her out a little bit. But that's really about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, check out Scott's video. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've watched his. Love his content. Thanks for being an inspiration, Scott. And yeah, take it easy, guys. Peace.